Hey everyone, Switch here. It is time for another theater video, and this time is about the dragons from J5 Make Your Mark. Ever since the first trailer of Chapter 6 was released, there was one small detail about the dragons that caught my eyes. In fact, they had cutie marks. But the fact is, as we all know, back in G4, only the ponies were only the creatures that had a cutie mark. And of course, Gabby, the griffin, wanted to have her own cutie mark. But as we all know, the ponies were the only ones that had a cutie mark. Another small detail is that the dragons from G4, including Spike, didn't even have any cutie marks. So I was like, how is it even possible for dragons in G5 to have cutie marks? But it's another thing about it. When we look at it, when we only see only a little handful of the dragons that was presented in G5, only one in that particular group of dragons did not have a cutie mark, which were Spike. Spike was as a character from G4, and he was never born without a cutie mark, or now in his older age. But the other dragons, in fact, had a cutie mark. How does that even make sense? I mean, considering from one small thing here. When Spike was born, or hatched, he didn't have any wings. And Sparky, when he was hatched, he had wings. So how does it even make sense about that this particular dragons have cutie marks? But it turned out, some of the dragons have their unique magic. Sparky has his transformation magic. As we all know about, Spike has teleportation magic. And Fountain has the ability to manipulate and bend water and spray with her magic. So the question is, how in the world could they had a cutie mark in the first place? Unless they weren't 100% dragons themselves. What if those dragons were in fact not entirely dragons? What if this was a whole different type of dragons out there? I mean, what if there's a different species of dragons, unless these particular dragons are hybrids? There was one other small detail that I also noticed. The other dragons, they had horns. Spike did not. Sparky had horns. But even though that Sparky do had horns, he doesn't have a cutie mark. But it doesn't mean that he would eventually get a cutie mark. But if Spike is now older, wouldn't he somehow get his own cutie mark for some reason? Well, technically it would be if he was a hybrid. If the others are in fact hybrid dragons, not real, only blood dragons. But in fact, we have no idea. I mean, the only explanation I can even think of is that if these dragons are hybrids, it would make some sense if they were dragon hybrids or between a dragon and a pony. It would make sense that their pony ancestry were given an opportunity to have a cutie mark. And another small detail about this, those cutie marks can glow, unlike the ponies do. Well, for the most part they don't. But we have no idea about these particular dragons. They might be so surprising if they were debating in the fandom that these dragons, this particular small group of dragons that we saw in G5, is actually hybrids. Ever since the dragons and ponies became friends back in G4, I would not have been surprised that some dragons actually formed a romantic relationship with some ponies. And those dragons could have been their hybrid offspring. but it's only speculation about it. We have no actual proof or confirmation if those dragons are hybrids or actual full-blood dragons. But assuming there are hybrids, just assume, it would explain in some details why these particular dragons in fact had a cutie mark and also very special talent magic. But there's one small detail that doesn't even add up though. And that small detail is that Spike has teleportation magic fire. Some would assume that Spike is in fact had been a hybrid the whole time. But we can't assume that right away because without knowing if his parents are full-blood dragons. But there is one small thing that would immediately rule that out. And the fact is the reason. Since before Amber became a Dragon Lord, the dragons didn't even care much about friendship of other creatures like ponies, griffins, or anything like that. They only scared ponies, except for one, would be Spike. But thanks to Spike and Amber, the dragons eventually became true friends with the pony kind. So before then, having two dragons, or at least one dragon to fall in love with a pony, it sounds a little bit far-fetched, but even though the possibility might be slim to none, but it might be possible. But anyways, how is it the fact that the dragons in G5 had cutie marks without knowing the fact if there is a whole different type of dragons or if all of them are hybrids? If they were hybrids, that could have been explaining why they had this type of cutie marks. I mean, it would make some sense if they were a pony dragon hybrid ancestry. It would give it a opportunity for them to have the chance to somehow get this type of magic or this, in fact, cutie mark. But without having a full backstory of those particular dragons. But there's one small thing about this. The dragons, as Tumble said, that they have been part of this plan to being put in this magical hibernation for centuries. So I'm assuming that these dragons, Blaze, Leaf, Jade, Lava, Fountain, Lux, and Tumble had all been born around the time of during Twilight's reign, and they were even much younger than Spike comparatively. But assuming at least that happened, if they were all went to sleep around the same time centuries ago, it would make sense in some way, but in a way, well, we might never know exactly why these dragons actually have cutie marks. But it's also a possibility that the writers behind G5 have just simply had this idea to give a whole new type of dragon's abilities out there. But if they decide to give these dragons a cutie mark and with their special talent, their type of special magic, then why not with Spike? I mean, if you consider that he has this teleportation magic since G4, why not give him his special talent in a cutie mark? Well, we may never know for sure, but it's possibility we may know for sure or at all. But who knows? But anyways, this is my theory about that. So if anyone has their own theory or their own opinions, you can leave that in the comment section below. As always, this is Switch Diablo, over and out.